So welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Roko and Michelle. This week, it's going to be on the power of playing to your strengths. And so it's always good to chat with you. And we'll talk in a minute. I love the quote. So it's from Ryan Kahn, and it's master your strengths, outsource your weaknesses. What came to mind for me on this one, and Roko and I were talking, we say it all the time. I mean, play to your strengths. Mm-hmm. As a team, we want our team to play to our strengths. But I think what reinforced it for me was I read the book, Six Working Geniuses by Patrick Lencioni. And in there, while he doesn't say play to your strengths, essentially that's it. It's that space that you can identify in the team is that stuff that you're good at, that gives you energy and joy and everything that contributes to it, that literally you could do that thing forever. I mean, you don't run out of energy doing that. And so when you're working in a team environment, identify those things that literally drain the energy out of you and look for someone else on the team that gets energized by doing that thing. And not just assume, well, that's part of your job description and you're just going to have to do it. It's like, no. So that's what comes to mind for me is, and energize people, but play to the strengths of the team and the individuals. And work is not work anymore.
Right. And what I'd add to that too is if you focus on your weaknesses and try and continue to develop them, you may never be good at those weaknesses to where it's going to have a momentous impact on your either career path, your performance, whatever it is. So let it go. And I didn't really think about that concept until I read Strength Finders and did the Strength Finders, because it's the same thing that Patrick Lencioni is talking about, is know what your strengths are and build on that, because whatever those weaknesses are, they'll be overshadowed by the positive impacts that are going to come out of you developing and really focusing on the strengths that you have as an individual. And that's just always stuck with me. So it's like, yeah, that does kind of make sense. If I'm a long distance runner, I'm not a fast runner. And no matter how many sprints I do, I will never run a 4-minute mile ever. Right. But I'm really good at mentally, getting my mind focused for endurance. And I have just the sheer will that I will not quit on something. So I can get myself to do those long endurance runs and feel good that I've still accomplished something. But if I beat myself up over these sprints, it's never going to get me anywhere.
It's interesting you say that. So my brain went a couple places. Number one is I've never done the assessment around Strength Finders, right? And so I've heard it enough now that I wrote it down, because I'm like, I need to know more.
Come on.
I need to know more. I need to know more. But the other part of it is when you were talking about, you're not a sprint runner, you're a long distance runner. And I'm in my head, I'm like, and I am not a runner at all. It's like, no. But what I can relate to is funny when you're talking is the whole, once I set my mind to something, that project, whatever, I'm going to stay in it and do it. And I remember you and I getting together on Sundays and mapping out, as we're developing, development stuff. I think it was executive leader foundations or leadership foundations that, it's like, we're going to see this to the end. There's that commitment that, that we're going to follow it through. And to your point, if you're in the sprint mode, you miss the planning part. You better make sure everything's like fired on everything. And I think for me, I need process time. I may process quickly and stuff, but I need the iteration. I need all that stuff. So that's where my brain went. Yeah. So I'm not going to be running. Okay. But I can relate to a strength that if I say it's going to happen, I'm in there and it's going to happen. I mean, I'm going to commit to seeing it through.
Yeah. So share for folks about what Patrick was speaking about in his book, Six Geniuses, because I haven't read the book, and I'm sure there are folks that are watching us that haven't read the book. So what was that?
Oh, so
Sweet
it's,
spot.
yeah. So it's 6 degrees. So you could say 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever. But it's 6 degrees of stuff. So if you're in the working genius phase of stuff, and he came about it in working with his team because he found himself, he was in marketing, loves the visionary creativity, all that stuff, right? And so what they ended up doing was identifying the phases of work. So regardless of, or agnostic to what the work is, there are phases of it. So you've got the iteration thinking phase, you've got the whatever phase, so there's the 6 phases. And you have people that step in and their strength is that phase. So you can have the ideation person.
Yeah.
They can be cranking out ideas and visionaries and all that stuff, right? Only the actual tactical of doing this stuff, I mean, they would sooner die. I mean, that's the last thing that they want to do is, or some people that are really great at, let's get it over the finish line. And other people are like, I lose interest at that point. I want to go on to the next shiny object. I could care less. I get to this point and I'm next. So they identified the phases of just work, right? From ideation through all that. And I'm sorry, I don't know all of them. I should have thought that you would ask me this question when I brought it up. But they identified with the team that he had where they fell in. So some of them were in a couple, because you have a couple that you hit right off the bat, and then 2 more are kind of your mid area, and then 2 more down at the very bottom. Stay away from the bottom, guys, okay, if you can. But play to those ones, because the middle range, like you've got your genius level and stuff, the other ones you can do, but you can't do for extended periods of time. So you have a skill set in doing it, but it's not going to be endless energy, the Energizer Bunny, right? And then the other ones literally are just drain. They just suck the energy out of you. And I look at people I work with, Tansy, okay, for instance, I love details. I can do spreadsheets, I can do all that stuff, right? Love it. Get into the analytics piece of it. Yes, I'm that person, okay? Tansy, when I go to give her stuff, she wants to just poke her eyes out. She's like, okay, I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore, because we are wired differently. So when you talk about playing to the strengths, we're not going to give her an Excel spreadsheet or analytics to go deep dives on stuff. So that's the thing is, what is the thing that energizes you that you're good at? And it could be beyond, if you're talking about a team, the roles they're currently in. So that's the beauty of and in fact, he's got something on his website that I'm going to do more research on, but to say, what does that assessment look like for your team? Are people in the right roles?
Yeah. What's coming to mind too is, we talk about diversity and inclusion and the benefits of having a diverse team and including those diverse perspectives. And that's what's coming up for me right now is, if you think about people's strengths, and you have a diverse team with different strengths, then you're truly valuing and engaging people in the right way to capitalize or optimize on those diverse perspectives. To where you just get this winning momentum. Whereas if you're forcing people to do things that are draining them of their energy, you could come up flat from a team dynamic perspective and the outcome or the results of that team.
A couple things come to mind. There was one example in the book. There was one of the, they were intern kind of level, in this marketing thing. And this one kept constantly making mistakes. I mean, constantly. And it didn't matter what disciplinary path he was on. But what happened was he was doing a job that didn't play to his strengths, right? So it was in this area that literally drained him. He wasn't attention to detail. He wasn't that person. And so luckily they figured out, we're going to move you over here, when they started looking and realizing, let's look at our internal team and beyond just the leadership and say, you know what, is that what's contributing to what's going on? We literally have someone doing a job that they're not wired to do. And so I think that's it. I remember I used to say it with the team all the time, we're going to play to our strengths. So step into the stuff that you're really good at. And it doesn't matter. all things are not equal. We don't need everyone on the team to be able to be proficient in X, right?
Right.
But let's figure out what that is, because then people feel successful. We step into stuff, and to your point, we can get stuff over the line much faster and with accuracy.
Yeah, and engagement.
Yes.
Engagement. People
Yeah.
are more likely to stay engaged if it's
Yeah.
something that's filling their cup
Yeah.
versus something that's sucking the life out of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Doing it.
So what I'll do is I'll find, if I can find the link for the 6 working geniuses, there's some information. If there's a free assessment or more information, I'll put it when we post this, because I think it's worthwhile looking into, because it is, I don't know that I've done it and saying it to say, hey, if this thing you love, step in, raise your hand, let's get you going. But an actual official, air quote, official kind of assessment, I've never done, but it may be worthwhile to kind of go through that activity with a leadership group so that people can have ahas. And Patrick Lencioni's book talks about, he's done this with so many organizations now that literally move people around because they realize they were in the wrong roles.
Yeah. 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 Because it's a slightly different twist to many of the other personality type assessments, where like the DISC or 5 dynamics and things like that, where they're saying, you know, again, where are your strengths? Where do your stress points? Where do your natural tendencies, Myers-Briggs and things like that? But this is kind of saying, okay, now take those things and apply them to the work that's being asked of your team and see if that's contributing to the dynamics and the effectiveness of your team, which is
well, and Patrick, his own personal story when he was going through it, and they landed and discovered and created this thing, right? Evolved it, because literally they were a marketing firm. So marketing firms and leadership development. But when they landed on it, it was because he was self-employed, had built this business. It gotten to the point where he talked about on Sundays, the Sunday blues. I can't remember exactly what he called it, but he was dreading going to work on Monday. The weekend's fun until that point, and then you're like, oh my God. Well, he loved what he did, but there were aspects of what it, you know, as he moved on, that he took on responsibilities and stuff that were not his strengths. Right, we're in his working genius, right, in that genius thing. And so it drained him to where he just hated to go to work. And so he's starting to get that with his own business. And he was not a really pleasant guy to be around, but he could flip in an instant and be all energized with these projects and everything else. And so that's where it came about. And so if you're in that sweet spot to where you're playing to your strengths, you're operating in that stuff, people on the team are doing that, you bring joy. You're energized, you're happy, to your point, you're engaged. And then work, for the most part, isn't work.
Right. It's your passion.
Yeah. Because work's a really kind of heavy gray word. It's like, but you know, anyway, so that it's a really cool topic. So yeah, I'll get some information and we can put it down below when we post this if anybody's interested. So anyway, thank you.
For the topic.
Yeah, I love it. So what's something you want people to walk away with?
Spend your time focusing on building and developing your strengths. And if you don't know what they are, figure out what they are and let go of the weaknesses. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I think part of it, what came to mind for me, is that people may be focused on closing the weakness gap because it's required for the role that they're in, which is probably not the right role for them if that's the case, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me, to piggyback on that, is come from a place of curiosity around the thing of what is it to play to your strengths? What does that look like? And if you're a leader, what does that look like for your team? You know, what are those strengths? What are those things that people get energy from, that they're really good at, that, you know, they're knocking it out of the park? And it'd be kind of cool just to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So anyway, that would be it for me. All right. Well, thank you again. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Roko and Michelle. So please like, share, subscribe. Until next time, we'll talk to you then. Thanks.
Bye-bye.